Exposed. The incredible truth behind my heartwarming transformation after selling everything. Jake stood on the porch of what used to be his family home. The weight of loss pressing down on his shoulders like an anvil. The rustling cornfields that had once bloomed with affluence and community spirit now seemed to whisper tales of his shattered dreams. In the heart of America's landscape, judgmental glances from neighbors cut deeper than any financial setback. Once a proud business owner, he now faced the quiet ruin of his life, grappling with immense shame for failing his wife, Sarah, and their 2 children. But desperate times breed desperate measures. One sleepless night, as shadows danced across the ceiling, Jake made a radical choice. He gathered everything that defined him: his beloved tools, the soft, worn couch he shared laughter on, and family heirlooms that held generations of memories. He sold it all, hoping to find clarity in the chaos. Farewells echoed in his ears as he loaded his old truck, his heart a storm of emotions. This was the death of his past, but he hoped for a rebirth. With every mile that slid beneath his tires, he felt the mist of despair evaporate into something new. Through small towns and bustling cities, each face he encountered told a story, a shared struggle that mirrored his own. The warmth of a diner in a town where all were welcome, the laughter of children playing despite their parents' worries, and stories told around a campfire all reminded him of the resilience bubbling within the heart of America. Nestled in a small coastal town, he found a community bonded by fortitude and camaraderie, the kind of place where strangers became friends in an instant. And this haven, he met Marla, a single mother light years away from the life she dreamed of. Their late-night conversations crackled with hope and common understanding, igniting a flicker within Jake he thought extinguished. As they exchanged stories of loss and dreams deferred, his heart swelled with possibility, completely defying the circumstances that had once immobilized him. Before he could fully embrace this new chapter, an opportunity knocked, one laced with temptation. The chance existed to reclaim his business, the very heartbeat he had lost, but it dangled dangerously close to moral compromise. He could restore himself, return home with a gleaming trophy of success, yet at what cost? He weighed the allure of material gains against the invaluable bonds forming in this community that had embraced him with open arms. Just as the sun dipped below the horizon, filling the sky with hues of pink and gold, an unexpected call shattered his moment of clarity. It was his children, their voices a tender reminder of everything he held dear. They spoke of disappointment, longing for their father to return, igniting a painful tug in his heart. They were yearning for the love and connection the distance robbed them of. Caught between the promise of financial restoration and the love of family, memories surged through him like rushes of adrenaline. He stood rich not in wealth, but in something far more compelling. Would he relinquish his hard-won integrity for a fleeting moment in the spotlight? Or would he choose a path brimming with authenticity and connection? Sacrificing who he was for what he used to be felt like an impossible betrayal. As the dusky chill wrapped around him, Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of realization pressing down on him. The path ahead lay shrouded in uncertainty, filled with love, loss, and choices unmade. What did it truly mean to succeed in a world filled with so much despair and fleeting victories? He opened his mouth to speak, knowing the choice before him was a turning point, leaving a question lingering in the sweet evening air. Would he embrace the riches of connection, or surrender to the siren call of his past? Jake stood there, breathless, grappling with the weight of the decision before him. The sun had dipped behind the horizon, leaving behind streaks of orange and purple that painted the final canvas of his day. But those colors felt distorted, much like his own life, a blend of beauty and heartache. As he felt the wind brush against his skin, memories tugged at his heartstrings, each one whispering encouragement and doubt in equal measure. He glanced back toward the house, a place once filled with laughter, warmth, and family gatherings. The echoes of his children's giggles bounced around in his mind. How long had he been away from them? A week? A month? Felt like a lifetime. The longing in their voices was a dagger, piercing through the facade of newfound clarity he built around himself. Could he really choose to let go of them again, all for a chance to rebuild something that had crumbled? Marla's voice called him back to the moment, soft yet insistent. "What will it be, Jake?" she had asked during one of their late-night talks, probing gently. "Are you going to chase after something that might just hurt you more? Or will you stay and build something real?" She didn't know it yet, but those simple words had become the lodestar guiding him through the fog of regret and confusion. There was an undeniable magic in this new place. Each day unfolded like a fresh page of promise, filled with the laughter of children playing in the streets and neighbors gathering for spontaneous barbecues. It felt right, like he was finally beginning to stitch together the fabric of a new life worth living. But as the weight of his children's voices echoed in his mind, Jake felt a pull toward his old life that threatened to tear his heart into. Should he do what felt like an instinctual betrayal to his soul and reclaim what he once had? With time he had learned it wasn't only the business that defined him, but the connections, the laughter shared, stories told over coffee, and the warmth of a single smile that could light his way through the darkest nights. In this coastal haven he had found people who mirrored his struggles. The barista juggling 2 jobs to support her dreams, the fisherman contemplating his next catch, the teachers fighting for their students' futures. Jake took a step closer to the edge of the porch, looking out at the quiet street before him. The town, with its faded paint and weathered signs, was alive with possibilities. Could he truly forego returning home to his kids for this newfound sense of belonging? Was it wrong to pursue a path that brought joy to his heart, even if it meant disappointing his family? As his tummy nodded, the phone buzzed again in his pocket. It was another call from Sarah. The tone of urgency snapped through his daze, pulling him back into reality. He knew he had to answer. Maybe Sarah had insights or thoughts that would illuminate his path. With trembling hands he accepted the call. As he brought the phone to his ear, the familiar voice of his wife came through, laced with an anxiety that made it hard to breathe. "Jake, there's something important we need to discuss." The knot in his stomach tightened, and he felt all the chaos in his world boiling to the surface. What could she possibly say that would change everything once again? He braced himself, knowing this conversation could shift the course of his life forever. As he took a deep breath, he realized he was standing on the precipice of change yet again. Would this be the moment he finally chose family? Or would he embrace the unfamiliar warmth of a new beginning? He held his breath, the weight of the world pressing down. What awaited him on the other side of that phone call? "Jake," Sarah's voice broke through the haze, shaky yet resolute. "The kids, they miss you. They talk about you every day." His heart clenched at her words. Images of Ella and Max swept through his mind like a tidal wave. Ella's sunny smile, the way Max would curl up on his lap after a long day. They were as much a part of him as his own heartbeat. "How are they doing?" His voice came out rough, a painful reminder of how long it had been since he held them close. "They're hanging in there. But it's hard, Jake. I can't pretend everything is okay when it's not. They ask about you and I don't know what to tell them anymore." He wanted to reach through the phone to soothe them, to tell them he was coming home soon. How could he turn that love into a decision that would break their bonds? The weight of grief and guilt crushed him, leaving him gasping for air. "I miss them too, Sarah. Every single day. But I've found something here. It feels like a chance for a life I've been searching for. I don't want to make any promises that I can't keep." He glanced back at the sunset-streaked horizon, unsure whether the colors blended together or stood in stark opposition. "Is it really about that new life? Or are you just scared?" Sarah challenged gently. "You're running from the pain, Jake. You're avoiding the hardest parts of being a father. You know our kids have been through so much. They need you now more than ever." Her words stung. He felt the truth seep into the cracks of his facade, and for a moment, he stood in the naked reality of his choices. "They love you like crazy," Sarah continued. "And just because we're apart, it doesn't mean you can simply walk away from being a dad. You don't get to start over while leaving that behind." The afternoon light faded, shadows creeping into the edges of his thoughts. He had been so focused on his own struggle, he hadn't stopped to consider how his choices affected the ones he cherished most. "But what if I can't just go back?" Jake whispered, fighting the rising tide of despair. "What if I can't be the husband and father you all deserve? What if I fail them again?" There was silence on the other end of the line, a quiet reflection that wrapped around them like an embrace. Hope and heartache mingled, both heavy yet beautiful in their own way. "You won't know unless you try," Sarah finally said, her voice softening. "Your absence has hurt us, but we're still here waiting. I don't want to lose you, Jake. Maybe there's a way to find balance." The air thickened, weighed down by decisions that felt so far from easy but rang true in his heart. Could balance even be possible after all he had let slip away? "I have to think about this," he murmured, yet deep down a spark flickered to life. a glimmer of hope forcing its way through the doubt. Just know we're rooting for you and we always will be. I believe you can do this, Jake. As the call ended, he felt the warmth of her words envelop him. In that moment he knew he was standing at a crossroads, the kind that could define the rest of his days. Jake looked back at his house, shadows now dancing under the porch light, and wondered, would his heart lead him home? Could he gather the courage to face what had haunted him for so long? He took a deep breath, heart racing as his mind began humming with possibilities. Tonight, he had a choice to make, but what if there was a part of him searching for more than just reconciliation? What if he could find a way to blend the beauty of his new life with the love that waited for him back home? One thing stood clear. Tomorrow would be a day of bringing truths to light, both for himself and for those he loved. Little did he know, the choices he would unveil could reshape the foundations of his very existence in ways he hadn't even begun to fathom. As the sun dipped lower, he felt the growing anticipation within him. What revelations would guide him to a future where he truly belonged? Jake spent the night tossing and turning, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. Each time he closed his eyes he saw Ella's cheerful face, her laughter echoing like a melody, and Max's wide-eyed innocence. It was almost unbearable, the weight of longing and regret pressing down on him as he replayed moments both cherished and lost. When dawn broke, something within him shifted. It was more than just a resolution. It was a yearning for connection, a desire to find a way back, not just as a father, but as a man who had walked away from everything he loved. He jumped out of bed, his heart racing with newfound determination. But what did that even mean? How could he go back when every part of him felt so raw? Was he ready to confront the past he had tried so hard to escape? He stepped outside, invigorated by the crisp morning air. The sun rose slowly, casting rays that warmed his skin, shining light into his innermost fears. He hadn't realized how isolated he had become. Wrapped up in his own struggles, Jake grabbed his phone. With trembling fingers he opened a new message to Sarah, his heart pounding in his chest. "Can we talk? I think I need to come home." It was a simple message, but it felt like admitting defeat and hope in the same breath. Almost instantly a reply pinged back, "Of course. We can figure this out together." There it was, a sliver of hope. He spent the day reflecting, channeling every ounce of energy into planning how he could reconnect, how to bridge the chasm he had created. He knew he wouldn't be the same man he was before, but maybe that wasn't the point. Jake realized it was about growth, healing, and showing Ella and Max that their dad was committed to change. At the local cafe, Jake wrote down everything he wanted to say. The notebook felt like a lifeline, each word tumbling forth like a tidal wave of emotions: apologies, promises, dreams. With every stroke of the pen he felt lighter, as if he was shedding the layers of guilt that had wrapped around him for so long. Then he remembered something. What if I show them? He thought. What if he didn't just tell Ella and Max he loved them but also demonstrated it? Could actions speak louder than words? The clock crept closer to evening as he mentally revisited his plans. He knew he had to face the inevitable questions: the why, the how, everything that had gone unspoken for too long. But more than anything, Jake wanted to show his kids that while life might throw curveballs, it was about how you dealt with them that counted. As he drove back to his old neighborhood, memories flooded him. The streets he had walked with his children were suffused with laughter, warmth, and sometimes sorrow. Home. It felt strange to be back, and yet, there was a flicker of familiarity that soothed him. He parked in front of his house, nerves thrumming like the bass of a distant song. It looked the same yet different, as if waiting for a new beginning. He took a deep breath, feeling the tangible love that lingered in the air, and knocked on the door. Moments ticked by before it opened. There stood Sarah, looking uncertain but hopeful. "You're back," she breathed, and in her eyes, he could see the cracks of pain and the glimmer of possibility. "Yeah," he admitted, stepping inside. "I want to be here for all of us. Can we try again?" Before Sarah could respond, they were interrupted by the sound of little feet rushing down the hall. Jake's heart raced as he turned to see Ella and Max. Their faces lit up with recognition, and suddenly everything felt electric. "Dad!" Max shouted, arms wide open. Jake dropped to his knees, enveloping them both in a tight embrace. "Hey guys! I missed you so much," he whispered, tears pricking at the corners of his eyes. And that moment of reunion, Jake sensed the shift within him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, It didn't matter. He had taken the first step and that was enough. But still, a nagging question loomed in the back of his mind. Could they truly rebuild their lives together after all the cracks that had formed? The answer lay just beyond the horizon, waiting for him to uncover it. Jake sank into the moment, enveloped in the warmth of his kids' embrace. The scent of their hair, the feel of their small bodies pressed against him, reignited a fierce determination in his chest. Yet, as the initial happiness washed over him, it was quickly followed by the sting of reality. How much had changed in his absence. "Let us go play," Ella exclaimed, her voice sweet but tinged with uncertainty. Jake pulled back slightly to catch her eye, searching for the familiar glow of joy he remembered. Instead, he found a flicker of apprehension, as if she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. "Absolutely. I'm all in," he said, forcing a smile that felt stitched together. He didn't want any doubts to creep in tonight. They darted toward the living room, where a scattering of toys lay waiting for them, but Ella hesitated. She turned to Sarah, who stood leaning against the wall, her arms crossed protectively. "Can we play outside?" Ella's voice was small, laced with a hope Jake hadn't anticipated. "Of course. Let us go kick the soccer ball around," Sarah replied, her gaze softening. Once outside, fresh air and fading daylight surrounded them. Jake felt the tension in his shoulders ease as he watched Ella and Max run, their laughter dancing on the breeze. He joined in, kicking the ball back and forth, celebrating the simple joy of being present. But community eyes weren't blind. Several passing neighbors glanced their way, faces hardened with unspoken judgments, as if assessing whether his return was genuine or another fleeting whim. He shifted uncomfortably, feeling every critical gaze itch against his skin. Were they remembering the chaos he'd brought families to? Their raised eyebrows felt like stones thrown at his fragile new beginning. "Dad!" Ella shouted, chasing the ball as it rolled to the edge of their yard. For a split second, the tension behind Jake's breastbone surged again. He took a few large steps, scooped the ball, and lightly tossed it in her direction. The light in her eyes when she caught it warmed his heart. Later that evening, Jake sat at the dinner table, the familiar routine flooding back in a tide of nostalgia. He watched the kids chatter excitedly, stuffing their faces with spaghetti. They were vibrant, their laughter filling the gaps where silence had lain dormant for too long. Yet, the question that gnawed at him earlier crept back: what about the spaces that still felt empty? "Hey, can you tell me a story?" Max asked, his face smeared with tomato sauce, bringing Jake back to the present. "Sure," Jake said, his voice shaky. "About the brave knight who saved the kingdom." As he spun the tale, weaving fragments of his own struggles into the heroic journey, he saw eyes widen and imaginations ignite. With each passing moment, he felt a connection forming. But somewhere deep inside, unease settled. The knight he portrayed needed to demonstrate bravery through action, not just words. As the dinner wound down, he caught Sarah studying him. There was a softness there, worn by the scars of their past yet hopeful. The tension from earlier lay heavy in the air. He had only scratched the surface of the conversations left unspoken. "What else do we need to talk about, Sarah?" Jake asked, breaking the silence that had formed. The question hung between them like a fragile thread, teetering on the edge. "Our hearts," she finally responded, eyes glistening. "They both need to heal. No, they need to be rebuilt." Those words echoed like a drum in his mind. He realized they were facing a mountain, not just hills. But how would he navigate the treacherous terrain of their feelings? A knock echoed through the house, catching them all off guard. Jake instinctively knew this was more than just a visitor. It felt ominous. He exchanged looks with Sarah and the kids, already feeling panic creeping back in. Who was here now? In that moment, Jake recognized a pivotal truth: the past would not let them wade through life without facing it head-on. He took a deep breath, feeling the familiar pressure of a life half-lived. "Maybe it's time for more than just stories," he murmured as he moved toward the door, an unsettling sense of foreboding wrapping around him. What awaited him on the other side could either unravel their fragile connection, or push them closer together than ever before. The stakes had suddenly risen, and he was ready to find out just how deep the rabbit hole went. Jake steadied himself at the door, his heart drumming against his ribs. The air felt thick, heavy with unspoken fears and the weight of decisions long buried. He turned the knob and opened the door, Bracing for the unknown, standing there was Mr. Thompson, an older neighbor with a face map of worry lines and gray hair that seemed to dance on the edge of despair. Jake's stomach twisted. He hadn't seen him since his departure, and the sight of him now brought a rush of memories: the arguments, the whispered gossip, the disappointment. "Hey Jake," Mr. Thompson said, his voice a mix of unease and resolve. "Can we talk for a minute?" Sure. "Come in," Jake managed to reply, stepping aside as the man walked hesitantly into the living room. Ella and Max paused their play, their curiosity palpable as they peered at the unexpected visitor. Jake noticed Sarah's gaze flick back and forth between him and Mr. Thompson, her concern unmasked. "Dad, is everything okay?" Max asked, a small frown developing. "Everything's fine, buddy," Jake said, but his voice didn't carry the confidence he hoped for. He felt the tension tug at him again, as though they were all a part of an anxious string being pulled tighter. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat, glancing at the kids before focusing on Jake. "It's about the neighborhood. And you. We've been talking." His voice dropped as if he were sharing a secret. "Everyone is worried. Things have changed. And not for the better." "What do you mean?" Jake asked, instinctively bristling. "Look, I'm not here to judge you, but there's been talk about your past. About why you left." Mr. Thompson hesitated, his gaze searching Jake's for understanding. "We just want to make sure you're really back to stay." Feeling exposed, Jake held his ground. "I'm trying, Mr. Thompson. To be better. For my kids. For Sarah. I know it won't fix everything overnight." "It's not just about you, Jake," Mr. Thompson said, soft but firm. "Your past has an impact on everyone. Do you understand that our community has its own scars? They want to see real change, proof that you are committed this time." The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. Jake nodded. He understood responsibility but felt overwhelmed by the weight it carried. The kids remained silent, sensing the shift in energy. "Do you want to come back to the neighborhood barbecue this weekend?" Mr. Thompson prompted, his tone softening. "It might help. People want to see you. An opportunity for you to connect." "People need to see me? Isn't that just asking for trouble?" Jake replied, his chest tightening. "No. It's about finding common ground. They might not be ready to forgive, Jake, but maybe they'll listen. If they see you're trying." Jake took a breath. He realized then that this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about Sarah, Ella, and Max, his family striving for connection, acceptance, and understanding. "I'll think about it," he finally replied, but uncertainty gnawed at him. Would he be strong enough to face the community that once ostracized him? As Mr. Thompson nodded and headed for the door, Jake felt the walls closing in again. The kids resumed their play, but the laughter felt distant, muffled by the impending weight of confrontation. Once the door clicked shut, the silence settled awkwardly. Jake turned to Sarah, whose brows knitted in concern. "What do you think?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. She sighed, exhaling a tension that had gathered in the room. "I think people can surprise you. But Jake, it's a risk. Are you ready for this?" His heart pounded as he wrestled with his insecurities. What if the fear was too big? Yet, deep down, another flame flickered. This was an opportunity to show his commitment, to heal. "Maybe I need to face the past," he replied slowly, his mind racing with possibilities. "Not just for me but for all of us." "Just remember," Sarah said, her voice steady, "the truth from your past needs to be acknowledged if we want to build a future." Jake opened his mouth to respond when another knock echoed through the house, this time sharper, more insistent. His pulse quickened. Could it be someone else from the neighborhood, ready to dig up old wounds? Before he could move, the weight of what lay ahead bore down on him, leaving him breathless and anxious. What awaited behind that door might just be the reckoning he couldn't avoid, a confrontation with his past that could either lead to liberation or more heartache. Would he find the courage to open it again and face what lay ahead? Jake hesitated, his hand hovering over the doorknob. The weight of uncertainty pressed against his chest, making it hard to breathe. What if it was someone with another judgment, another reminder of his failures? Or worse, what if it was someone ready to spark a fight he wasn't prepared for? "Jake," Sarah said softly, drawing him back to the moment. Her steady eyes were filled with compassion and understanding. "You don't have to do this alone." He glanced at her, searching for reassurance in her expression. She offered a small smile, one that reminded him of those better days back when life felt simpler. He drew in a deep breath and turned the knob, opening the door to the swarm of his past. Standing there was Lisa, a former friend and old flame. Her face was familiar yet wore the weight of time and heartache. She shifted nervously, looking from him to the children, her eyes wide. Jake. The way she said his name sent a shiver through him, pulling up buried memories. Lisa. He made the effort to keep his voice steady, though it cracked just a little. The anxiety coursing through him intensified. She had always been one of those bright lights, and now here she was, a flash from the life he had left behind. I didn't expect to find you here, she started, her gaze darting back to the kids, who watched with curious expressions. Max picked up on the tension, his little brows furrowing in response. Jake could feel Sarah's eyes on him. There was a tightness in the air, an invisible tension that made the room feel smaller. Look, can we talk? Just for a second? Lisa asked, her voice quieter, almost pleading. Sure, he managed, stepping aside to let her in. The moment felt like a scene from a movie, where the elements were perfectly aligned for chaos. He led her to the living room, where the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation. The children resumed their play, but Jake felt their gazes lingering, sensing they were on the cusp of something significant. How have you been? He asked tentatively, wishing they could just chat about old times instead. I've been okay, she replied, but he could see the sadness lurking just beneath the surface. But that's not why I'm here. I heard about you coming back and I wanted to check in. Everyone's been talking. Jake's heart sank. The whispers, the judgment, he felt like he was trapped in a cage of his past mistakes. Talking? About what? He said, his voice dropping slightly. About the barbecue, she said, her tone shifting. People are still hurt, Jake. They want to know if this time it's real. I'm trying, he said, frustration bubbling to the surface. But how can I prove anything if they keep judging me for my past? Lisa studied him, concern pooling in her eyes. It's not easy for them either. You left, then came back. It's hard to rebuild when trust is broken. If you really want to change, they need to see it with their own eyes. Jake felt something in his chest crack, a longing to be accepted, but also the familiar sting of rejection. Everything he'd done felt insignificant beneath the weight of what others thought. Are you okay with facing them? Lisa asked, her voice breaking him from his reverie. Do you think you can deal with whatever comes next? I don't know, he whispered, his thoughts swirling, heart racing. What if they won't listen? What if they only see the guy who left? Maybe you should just be honest, she replied, a flicker of hope in her tone. Showing them you care goes a long way. Whatever happened, it made you who you are now. Don't hide from it. Jake swallowed hard, her words offering both a challenge and a lifeline. This was his chance, he realized. You really think they'll listen? I hope so, she said, her eyes searching his. People can surprise you when they see you're trying. You just have to take the first step. The reality of her suggestion settled around him. Reader's doubt and courage collided in his core. Could he? Did he even have the strength to chase away the shadows of his past? But as he glanced at Sarah standing there with unwavering support, a soft smile on her face, he felt his resolve begin to flicker like a budding flame. Maybe I will go to the barbecue, he said slowly, and the words tasted like bittersweet freedom. The thought terrified him, but perhaps this was what he needed. A chance to own up and truly begin anew. Jake? Lisa's voice drew him back. You've got this. Someday they'll see the real you. And just like that, he realized the biggest fight he had wasn't with his neighbors but with himself. He needed to face his fear head-on, or he might lose everything he had earned on this new journey. With newfound determination coursing through him, he closed his eyes briefly, envisioning a future free of fear and filled with possibilities. A world where acceptance could blossom, even from the roughest soil. Would it truly be worth the risk? As he opened his eyes to the uncertain future ahead, the next chapter of his life was waiting right at his doorstep. Jake stood frozen in front of Lisa, the weight of her words hanging heavily between them. The living room buzzed with the innocent laughter of Max and Lily, but his mind was racing. The echo of their past mingled with the present, stirring up emotions he had thought were buried deep. Did he really have what it took to stand in front of those people again? Maybe I should, he mumbled, but it felt more like a question than a decision. Just be honest, Jake, Lisa repeated, her gaze unwavering. You're not the only one who has changed. You've kept some shadows hidden, but now it's time to let the light in. He nodded slowly, trying to absorb what she was saying. Opening up meant vulnerability, but he couldn't ignore the small flame of hope flickering within him. It was time to confront the ghosts of who he used to be. Do you want to come with me? He asked suddenly, the words escaping before he could second-guess himself. He felt both anxious and relieved, a strange dichotomy. You know everyone better than I do. I wish I could, but I have my own things to deal with, she said, her voice softening. But I'll be rooting for you, Jake. Just remember, they're not all there just to judge. Some might surprise you. With a deep breath, he forced himself to look into her eyes. What if it doesn't go well? What if they can't get past everything? Then you face it. You learn, you grow, you keep trying. It's the only way forward, she replied, her determination igniting something in him. Jake felt his heart beat faster at the thought of standing before his neighbors, the people whose whispers had haunted him for so long. Could honesty really serve as a bridge back to acceptance? Just then, Sarah stepped closer, her hand resting reassuringly on his arm. You can do this, she said, a gentle smile brightening her face. I believe in you, Jake, and I'll be right here when you return. Her presence was like a buoy in stormy waters. It grounded him, easing the nerves that had been building ever since Lisa arrived. Okay, he said, determination solidifying in his resolve. I'll tell them everything. Good, Lisa said with a nod. You're stronger than you think. As they moved back toward the door, he felt a tinge of nostalgia. Memories rushed back like waves. Weekend barbecues, laughter shared. Friendships tested but never broken. But just as quickly as they came, those pleasurable thoughts were replaced by sharp pangs of uncertainty. Just remember, Lisa added as she stepped toward the doorway, this is about more than just confronting them. It's about you, who you've become. There was a glimmer of understanding in her eyes, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was on the edge of something profound. Hours later, the sun hung low in the sky as Jake stood on his porch, taking in the sight of his neighbors, the barbecue. A mixture of excitement and dread swirled in his stomach. Familiar faces moved about, oblivious to his presence. Could they really see the new him? He took a deep breath, the air filling his lungs with possibility. Here goes nothing, he thought. With shaky hands he began the walk toward the gathering, each step heavy yet deliberate. As he reached the edge of the yard, conversations ceased, heads turning toward him. Dozens of eyes bore into him. But Jake reminded himself of Lisa's words. He held on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, their hearts were more open than he had assumed, and just then, as silence enveloped him, the unexpected happened. Someone broke the tension with a familiar laugh, and it lit a spark of familiarity in the crowd. Jake stood frozen, poised on the precipice of transformation, and in that moment, the future felt unrealized yet full of promise. Would he find a way into their hearts? Or would old wounds prove too deep to heal? As he took that pivotal step forward, everything hinged on that single question. Jake's heart raced as the laughter echoed around him. He felt like a ghost in a once familiar world, suddenly thrust back into a life he had tried to escape. The names and faces swam through his mind, each bringing back a flurry of memories, some sweet, some bitter. Look who decided to join us. It was Randy, his neighbor and old friend. The joy in Randy's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Jake, come on over. As his childhood friend waved him closer, Jake took one cautious step, then another, feeling the warmth of the gathering wash over him. The smell of grilled meat mixed with the crisp scent of the dusk. For a moment, everything felt as if it were suspended in time, the laughter, the chatter, all weaving a soft blanket of welcome around him, but doubt clawed at his insides. What would they say? Would they see the man he had become, or the man he used to be? A part of him wanted to turn back, retreat behind the safety of his own walls where he could simply exist without judgment. But another part, the part Lisa had ignited, urged him forward. He was almost there when he caught a glimpse of Sarah watching him from a distance, her encouraging smile urging him on. Her belief in him felt like armor against the whispers of doubt. Hey Jake, have you been working out? Randy called out, breaking the ice with a playful shove. You look different. Laughter erupted from around the group. Jake couldn't help but crack a smile despite the tremor in his hands. Yeah. Just a new diet, he replied, chuckling at the irony of his own words. It wasn't the resounding welcome he had imagined, but it was a start small talk, humor that felt familiar yet distant. He stepped into the circle, and the warmth enveloped him. People began to ask questions. They wanted to know where he had been, what he had been up to. But inside, the silence loomed. As friendly faces surrounded him, Jake felt the weight of his truth looming larger than ever. He wanted to share everything, his struggles, his journey, but had never felt more exposed. Hey, is that your car? Someone asked, pointing at his old truck parked under a tree. Yeah, it's seen better days, Jake admitted, returning to the light banter. But as laughter rolled around him, he felt a deep tug in his chest. This feeling of normalcy was foreign yet unmistakable. I remember that thing. Took us to the lake that one summer, Randy said, eyes twinkling. Nothing beats the great old days, huh? Yeah, those were good times, Jake replied, but tears pricked the edges of his eyes. Days I want to recapture. Amid the laughter and the warmth, his heart ached for deeper connections. Above the small talk, he couldn't shake off the feeling that they were just scratching the surface, and they needed to go deeper. In that instant, he knew he was ready to share the truth of who he had been, and who he desired to become. The crowd buzzed with talk, but his heartbeat drowned everything else out. Before he could lose his nerve, he cleared his throat, cutting through the noise. I need to say something. Just as he opened his mouth to speak, a sharp sound sliced through the air, a crash that pulled every gaze toward the back of the lawn. Max, lost in a game of football with Lily, lay sprawled on the grass, his expression twisted in surprise. In an instant, Jake's moment of revelation was interrupted. A new tension filled the air as everyone raced toward the commotion. Jake hesitated, caught between what he wanted to say and the urgency of the moment. Would he ever get the chance? With the laughter fading behind him and concern pulsing forward, Jake's world flickered in uncertainty again. The question hung unspoken: would he seize his moment, or would life continue to sideline him? The air was thick with concern as Jake rushed to where Max lay. His heart hammered in his chest, a mix of panic and protectiveness kicking in. He dropped down to kneel beside his son, urgency flooding through him. Buddy, are you okay? His voice was laced with worry as he examined Max, who winced but quickly managed to grin. I'm fine, Dad. Just surprised. The relief flooding through Jake was palpable, mixed with a twinge of guilt. What if his moment to speak had just slipped away? But Max's laughter, ringing light amidst the chaos, cut through his thoughts. Jake felt the warmth of connection surging back in, pulling him closer to the moment. He helped Max up, brushing him off and wanting to hold him close, grateful that everything would be okay. As they moved slowly back toward the gathering, all eyes were on them again, the earlier laughter circling back like a warm embrace. It was as if the spill had broken whatever tension had hung in the air, and suddenly people were offering help, sharing stories of their own embarrassing moments, laughter bubbling back to life around them. Hey, don't worry about it, Randy chimed in. I fell flat on my face when I was 10, trying to impress Sarah. He pointed with a wink, causing her to roll her eyes in playful disbelief. Yeah, I remember. You thought telling jokes would win me over, Sarah shouted, joining in the laughter. The crowd erupted in joy, and Jake felt the pang of something deep within him soften, the realization that community meant sharing both the highs and lows, lifting each other during the falls, and celebrating reconnecting during the rises. With the noise of comfort swirling around him, Jake took a breath. It was time to shift hearts. He started speaking, his voice cutting through the laughter with conviction. I know I've been away and that I've made mistakes, but I'm here now. I want to be better for my kids, for my family, and for all of you, our community. He shared pieces of vulnerability, the weight of his past, the lessons learned. How the laughter and warmth he had experienced lately woke something in him long thought lost. Every day, I'm learning how to be a better dad, a better man. I know words might not be enough, but I'm here. I want to rebuild the trust one broke, he continued, looking into the faces turned toward him, searching for understanding. A hush blanketed the crowd as his words settled in, deeply resonating. Then one by one, nods and soft murmurs sparked within the crowd. Someone finally broke the silence, a gentle voice. It takes guts to come back and say that. We appreciate it, Jake. The chat swelled back in, laughter threading through. But the atmosphere felt different now, charged with recognition. Faces no longer wore the masks of judgment, but rather a flicker of openness. Jake realized standing there, with Sarah by his side and Max tugging at his pant leg, was the real victory. This sense of togetherness washed over him, their whispers changing from skepticism to empathy. An embracing breath of fresh hope filled the air as the barbecue carried on. Jake felt the warmth of acceptance, a connection bonding them deeper than any earlier moments of fear had left behind. He felt at peace, knowing this journey wasn't just about him. It was for them all, their family, neighbors, friends, healing together as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in soft hues of amber and lavender. Laughter accompanied memories made anew. Jake knew tomorrow would bring new challenges, fears, and choices. Yet he stood ready to face them. With each interaction, clarity blanketed the confusion that once clouded him. A promise etched in his heart to choose love, connection, and authenticity. And in the warmth of that night he understood. Rebuilding wouldn't be quick or easy, but here amid these familiar faces, hope ignited a new chapter worth living. For the first time in a long while he felt whole, grounded firmly in the embrace of family, love, and community. So Jake took another breath, allowing gratitude to flood his soul, embracing every beautiful and messy moment of growth in his life. He was finally returning home in every sense of the word. Now it's your turn to be part of this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm and support this amazing community. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this emotional ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.